I love that there are so many different educational philosophies out there that you can sort of look at and being like, oh, would that work for me? That would, that wouldn't, And so, to me, this is one of the great ways that helped me to sort of land on what was best, for me and for my girls as we educate them and what we want for them. Now, I know that I have covered videos on Montessori and Waldorf and Charlotte Mason. And today I want to look at classical education, to look at some of the pros and the cons of it and just a little bit about what it's like to see, is this something that would work for you? Hi, and welcome to Learning Life, and thank you so much for joining me today as we just take a quick little look at classical education. Do you know what it is? There's sort of really no short answer to it, but really it's the way that we were teaching. Think about the one house, the one room schoolhouses where we had that. And it was sort of something that sort of was taught, fell out of fashion, and it sort of has come back into fashion, especially amongst homeschool families. And so that's what I want to look at today. Learning something is always great for me, and I love to teach about it, because that is one of those things we learn when we teach. And it's why I love bringing these videos to you. And thank you so much for watching, for your likes, for subscribes, for letting people know about Learning Life. Well, classical education, is this something that you do? Now, I did for a year help out with a little homeschool co-op, and they were following classical conversations. And back then it was okay, I was happy to help, but it wasn't really a way that I necessarily enjoyed teaching. I realized I got a lot of freedom in my teaching, which is sort of where I landed at, with my girls. Okay, this is what we need to do. But, it is good. It has some strengths to it, which I see why many families are drawn to it and want to use it. That's the great thing. We've got so many different curriculum and sort of these educational philosophies out there that you can do what works well for you. And even though it might not work well for me, hey, it might be just what you need in your family. Now, there are 3 stages to classical education: the grammar, the dialectic, and the rhetoric. Big words right there. Really it's founded on the principle that children learn and develop in different ways, at different stages. The grammar, the dialectic, and the rhetoric. First, we have the grammar stage. This is our foundation of learning. Okay, we think grammar now is just, our nouns, verbs, all of that. No, it's not. Grammar really means that foundation. We used to have grammar schools. We don't have those necessarily anymore, but that's what it was. Now, to take this foundation of learning, this is for children under the age of 12. And it's really the age where children naturally acquire facts and information and knowledge. They're learning the concrete of it. This is just the key things. Repetition is key. There's memorization. And that's the key there in the grammar stage, that we're learning concrete facts that we are memorizing, and we're going to repeat to build up all of these different facts across different areas of learning. We then move into the dialectic stage. This is about 5th to 6th to 8th to 9th grade. So we're moving our early, our preteen, late preteen, sort of into teen years. And this is where we apply the logic to the learning. You've just learned all of these facts, just these concrete facts. Well, now let's apply that logic to it, the hows and the whys. Discussion is more introduced. We're really sort of introducing critical thinking during this stage. This is where I see my girls probably wouldn't do too well with classical conversations and classical education, because they just always want to know the hows and the whys. Really, that's the bulk of their learning, that we are researching the hows and the whys. Yes, they are a font of all knowledge with facts. They love facts, but they also love the hows and the whys. So for me, this is why I see it wouldn't necessarily work, because not all children are the same stage, just they're not all grade. And I feel if I was trying to limit the hows and the whys for my girls, it might stifle their learning. But for some kids, these building blocks of that grammar and that concrete ideas to then come into the dialectic and we're applying logic is really good. We then move to our rhetoric. Okay, this is 10th through 12th grade. This is where we get to analyze and synthesize and bring our own thoughts and beliefs and opinions. We've concrete, we've learnt the logic with it. We are now being able to present. And this is where you can sort of really teach yourself anything because you've learnt these stepping stones. So I get it. These are great stages, and that's ultimately how majority of children will learn, and especially as we build upon, as these good building blocks. Pros and cons. Okay, so as I said, I haven't had too much to do with it, but I spoke with some people, and just sort of in asking around and researching and looking online, we sort of come with the same sort of pros and cons every time. So the pros are that there is a strong foundation in literature, especially in the classics. Okay, I love that. I love literature, and I think that learning should be literature-based. I think there's so much we can get out of it. So that's a really good thing. There is also a great appreciation for the arts. Art education is important, art history, and understanding the arts. This is wonderful. It produces good thinkers. Who doesn't want good thinkers? Be able to think for themselves, analyze, present their own ideas and opinions. This is really good. I know I want my girls to be good thinkers. And it follows the more natural stages of development. And I get that. This is a good thing. The keys, building blocks. That's what we want. But then we have some cons. And the main one that seemed to come out was this emphasis on memorization, narration, dictation. There's a lot of memorization, especially in the grammar stage, and not all children enjoy that. And so that's okay. If this is a con for you, you don't have to follow this curriculum. But you got to remember it's memorization and repetition, and that's how we hold on to it so later on we can apply the logic. So that is a con. Another one would be that it is parent intensive. You do need to be very much involved, highly in the lessons, in making sure that things are being learnt and all of that. There's less being able to maybe let your child just work on their own independently. There's an emphasis on the ancient languages like Latin and ancient Greek. It's good to have some background knowledge of that. That's really where modern languages have come from. But for some people, there was too much emphasis on that and didn't feel that it was a strength that their children needed to have. Yes, let's touch base on it. Let's talk about why it's important, but not having such a strong emphasis. It can be rigid. Remember, memorization and facts, these are the key things, and they follow these cycles. And that doesn't leave this freedom if your child is interested in this, that you could just go and learn that. I know for me, this is how we learn. My child is interested in this, and so we apply the skills of learning to this based on their interest, rather that we're learning the facts and the skills come in with that. And people also feel that there are deficiencies in math and science. And, and looking around in it, yes, there are some. Can you add to it yourself? Of course, absolutely. With any of this, you can always add. You can always take out. You don't have to follow all of it. But there are some good strengths. There are some things that I know for me are cons, and that's why we don't do classical education. But that's also okay, because while it might not work for me, it might work for you. So this is sort of getting you thinking, go and have a look more yourself at classical education and the stages that it follows and its cycles and what it is teaching and how it is teaching, because it might really serve you well as a family. I'm not writing it off. I don't write off any curriculum or sort of really any sort of learning philosophy, because there's always something that we can get out of it. And there are some good keys here in the classical education of good building blocks, foundation in literature, and all of that. So if you have any more questions about it, feel free to ask me. I'm always here. I'm happy to answer questions. And thank you so much for watching. And, if you like being part of the Learning Life community, you can check out my website, LearningThis.Life, where I have blog posts to go with this and links and stuff like that. Also my pocket packs, you can check those out. But you can also join us as a champion. And you can do that through patreon.com or through my website, LearningThis.Life.